I'm going to show you how to set up a project plan. And you'll remember that project plans are basically to-do lists on steroids. And for this, we're going to use Google Sheets, which you should almost always use. That's my recommendation, unless you are doing something that's confidential, in which case you might want to use a different program. If you're not sure how to use Google Sheets or Google Drive, we'll go over that in another video, but for now, I'm just going to assume you have the basics. So we're going to go to where we want to make our project plan, and we're going to assume that it is in the protest folder. So this is a folder that I use in Google Drive, and I'm going to go to the place in that folder where I want to make my project plan. And I will imagine that I'm going to be planning a protest that's taking place July 2019. So I'm going to make it here. The first step is to go over to New, click that, and open a new Google Sheet. And it's going to tell you that you're making it in a shared folder, which means that everyone else who has access to that folder is going to have access to this project plan, and that's fine. So it is created. We're now going to go over the basic format of how you're going to set up this project plan. The first thing you want to do is give your project plan a title. So today I'm going to put in the date. This is the date format that we use, and I'm going to call it Training Protest Plan. You can call it whatever it is that you're planning. So I'm just going to orient you a little bit. These, where it says A, B, C, these are columns, and then we have rows. 1, 2, 3, etc. Those are the rows. The first thing I always do when I make a project plan is I make headings, and I always put that in the first row. And almost always, these are the headings that you're going to want to use for your project plan. The first is due date. The second is task. The third is point person, and status, and notes. Sometimes you're going to want other other headings. Sometimes you might not need a heading for the point person if you know you're going to do all the tasks, but these are generally the headings that you're going to want. So when you start listing all your tasks, which we'll get into in a moment, this is going to indicate when that task is due. This is going to indicate who is doing that task. This is going to indicate whether that task is done or not, or in progress. And this is going to be any sorts of notes that are associated with it. You can probably already tell right now that whatever task you have is not going to fit in this column here. So to make that wider, you can just move over, hover over the edge and pull that column over. Due date probably will fit in there. You might want a little bit of extra room for some of these, and you probably want some extra room for the notes. So you can drag that there. I like to then format this. This is optional, but you can say put it in the middle, and you can make it bold. Here's a lot of formatting options. One thing you are almost always going to want to do is freeze the top row. And in a later video, it'll become more clear why you want to do this. But what that means is that this row, if you freeze it, no matter what you do to this project plan, if you sort it by whatever category, this row will always stay at the top. And the way that you do that is you highlight it, view, freeze one row, because you're only going to freeze one row. And you can kind of tell that it's frozen because it has this light gray bar. It's almost like this is now the heading, and it's always going to stay at the top no matter what you do. If all of a sudden I wanted to insert another column to the right of this, like for example, if I had a very complicated project plan and I wanted to have another column, another heading that would be like for category of task, I could right click here and insert a column. I could also go up here and insert a column, or I could add another column like category down here, and then click and drag it over here. So there's a lot of different ways that you can play around with these project plans, and you'll get more familiar with it as you move forward. One last thing I wanted to show on the basic setup is that there might be a time when you want to have multiple sheets on the same project plan. So for example, you can create a whole new version of this that lives in the same document by just hitting plus. So there's another sheet right here that you have that's blank. You can go back to this one that has all these tasks in here, but that saves you some time from having all these multiple documents that it's sometimes hard to keep track of. And you can name these by clicking on it, task list. And let's say over here what you were going to intend to do with this sheet is a roles list. You could write roles, oops. Or you could add another one and write materials. This is almost always the 3 tabs that we have for a action that we might organize. And we probably will add one more that says action plan. And if you want to rearrange them, you really can. You just drag over there. Now, obviously, our project plan isn't done because there's nothing in it, but these are the basic parameters of setting it up. And I actually don't want this category. I was just using that as an example. So I'm going to right click on it and hit delete column, and now it's gone. Now, if I was done with it and I wanted to share it with someone, I would go over here and hit share, and I would send this and share it with Priya, for example. And I would hit that and would say, do I want Priya to be able to edit this, comment on it, or view? So if I'm working with Priya on something, I probably want her to be able to edit it. But if I'm just asking for her feedback or showing it to her, then maybe I only want her to be able to comment on it, or maybe I only want her to view. So I would hit that, and then I would hit send, and it would send that off to Priya. And those are the basics. Ooh, I'm done. I don't actually want to do that. That's the very basics of setting up the template for your project plan.